Welcome to Hort Culture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Hello, and happy hot, humid day if you're listening to this on the day of release. I'm sure it's hot and humid because we are in Kentucky and it feels
Summer
like
in
it's
Kentucky.
never going to. Yeah, it's never going to end. Just the sweat doesn't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. But anyways, how's everybody feeling today?
It's sort of a philosophical question of where does the sweat end and the humidity begin?
We're in extension, so we're just always sweating. We're just always working for the people.
Yeah,
it's just who we are.
Tis the season because you don't ever know what you're going to be doing. Like we put up a tent for a livestock show the other day, right? I mean,
welcome to horticulture.
Yeah, and it's like.
I like to call it the season where in extension, you're in the air conditioning just enough to mess up your acclimation to the heat and humidity. So there's no getting used to any one situation in extension because you're in all the situations in extension this time of year. You're in and out and everywhere in between.
Right?
Especially if you're a greenhouse
you
and controlled environment person like our guest is today. So today we've got on Dr. Qinglu Ying, who's in our horticulture department at UK. And so she's just down the hall from me. So Qinglu, how is your air conditioning versus humidity heat going?
Hello everyone. It's in my office. It's pretty good, but we did a lot of site visits as part of our extension outreach, and we're trying to promote our environmental sensor actually, and we've seen some 80%, 90%, or even 100% rating of relative humidity in some of the greenhouses in Kentucky.
Wow.
So normal Kentucky weather, in other words. Yeah.
Right. You're like, here's your temperature sensors. They're going to tell you that it's too hot, and good luck with that.
When it's 100% humidity, it's like, where do the tears end and the humidity begin?
Yes,
for me?
The pain is always there. It is.
I'm crying. I'm sweating. I am become moisture.
That's a good thing about sweating that much, Brett, is you can't tell that you're crying. So it sort of covers up the fact.
It's just all
tears out of my face. Yes.
Yeah.
You are.
I'm not a huge fan of the sweat mustache that forms, though, personally, because I don't have the upper, it's just like constantly wiping. And then if your hands have got potting soil on them, you get it everywhere.
Oh, that's nice. You have a nice mustachio?
Yeah,
is that what we're like, a cocoa mustache? Nice.
I taught the interns a trick this year when we did fair setup. I told them the day before, I was like, okay, I'm going to wear tie-dye tomorrow. And they're like, tie-dye? And I was like, yeah, you won't see the sweat. And they were like, what? And as soon as we did all these tents outside, moved fences, moved all this stuff, and people were sweating through their shirts. Your tie-dye shirt always hides you. Alexis taught me that. Wear a tie-dye shirt and you won't show the sweat. So
tie-dye for the win.
As you should. Yeah, potting soil tie-dye. That's what we're doing.
I like to call this rage season we're in because the rage hits me when the sweat runs freely into my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
And then if my hands are busy doing something, that is when my temperament starts to plummet as the temperature goes up. Is when I'm usually all good until the sweat hits the eyes. I'm done.
Well, we've got two glasses wearers here as well, so you all probably have a lot of fun in the humidity
And I'm bald, aka this mountain no longer has crops to prevent runoff of sweat.
Erosion abatement program.
Just you don't realize it's just straight. It's an impervious surface. It's basically asphalt.
Waterfall.
Sweat.
That could be a benefit, Brett. You have more evaporative cooling surface. Let's look on the bright side.
No, I will not because it hurts my eyes. And
I like these little greenhouse bits we're throwing in here. Evaporative cooling. We're just talking about this. And it's not because we have the controlled environment specialist on. That's a normal thing we would say. So
we would normally talk a lot about sweat regardless.
We've been getting off our chest for a while.
Yeah. Summer in Kentucky.
We've been looking for someone who would really appreciate it, Qinglu. So thank you for joining us today for our greenhouse bits. So, well, let's talk a little bit more about you, because I am very excited because you're doing some really cool things and I get to hear more about them today. So, but tell us a little bit about you and how'd you get into horticulture?
Sounds good. So I am an assistant professor and extension specialist at UK from Department of Horticulture. I focus primarily on controlled environment agriculture, which is called CEA, which includes greenhouse and indoor production. I'm helping growers to use science and technologies to improve crop production. I actually grew up in Beijing, China, which is a city of more than 20 million people, I think. And growing up, I didn't have much exposures to agriculture because there were literally no farmland around me. And that actually make me very curious about how plants are grown, where does all the food come from? And the curiosity eventually led me to horticulture and plant science. I became fascinated of how we can optimize the growing environments to improve the plant growth, improve the crop productivity. So I went to get my master and PhD degrees from University of Guelph in Canada, and then I moved to Kentucky almost 2 years ago.
Awesome. That's so cool. It's
What's
funny
the-
how. Go ahead, Brett.
I had a very. What's the weather like in Guelph, or where you did that? What's the situation up there?
I think it's a little bit cooler in the summer, but I'm actually not too sure with nowadays everything seems to be changing a lot. I think they're also getting pretty hot weathers up in Canada too, but the winter is definitely longer, colder.
Yeah, much
More
farther
snow.
north. Yeah.
But a greenhouse is a nice place to be, though, in
Yeah.
winter.
Exactly.
Sorry to step on your toes there, Alexis.
No, it's cool. I'm just I love hearing how people get excited about plants because I'll use Jessica as an example, but it could be me too. She grew up on a farm, so being around plants and animals was very normal thing, and she kind of followed that path. Sorry, I'm talking about you, Jessica, while you're sitting right here. But then to see the exact flip opposite of not having that exposure and just having that general curiosity of wait a minute, where does this come from? That's super cool in that situation. Yeah, for sure. Anyways, cool. So what drew you to Kentucky? Why are you here from Canada?
Well,
By way
there
of
was an
Canada.
open position, but what really attracted me was the opportunity. I think Kentucky has one of the fastest growing CEA industry in the country. A lot of people heard of Kentucky greenhouse industry because of App Harvest, which was a company who built a few of the really high-tech greenhouses a few years ago. Well, the company itself didn't succeed. It puts Kentucky at least on the map for greenhouse production. And those large greenhouse facilities are still in operation, growing fruits and vegetables year-round. But I think more importantly, there's also a growing community of small size to mid-size greenhouse growers across the states. So I think there's a lot of opportunities to help build the industry through applied research and extension. And I think that's why I'm really enjoy what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
You said something that was interesting. Is you mentioned two different sizes there. One fairly large size scale, and when I think of App Harvest, I think of big, large, modern operations. But I know a lot of producers in Kentucky are smaller in scale. Do you work on both ends of the spectrum as far as with big and small producers in Kentucky currently?
Yeah, I worked with the full spectrum of CEA growers, and they are facing different challenges, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I've talked with some folks that are transitioning, let's say, from a true high tunnel, and they're wanting a little bit more control over temperature or ventilation or whatnot. So they're kind of stepping up, but they look at themselves differently, and sometimes I guess it's daunting to them to get into all of the control systems and a little bit, more technology involved, and sometimes supplemental lighting, sometimes not. But so it is a little bit different when you work with producers around the state. I guess then different attitudes, probably different challenges for each group, I guess.
Exactly. Like the small size, mid-size growers, they're most of them are capital limited. They don't have unlimited investment to put in technologies, but they have to choose the appropriate technology that can build their production system step by step to achieve their goals. And I think that's one of the interesting things, is to help them to choose the appropriate technology that works for them. Now, like promoting all the things all at once, is like we're trying to build a stepping stone model to help growers in that way.
Yeah, it seems like, and I'm originally from the eastern part of this state, and this is dangerous. I'm recalling something from memory live on air. This is very dangerous. It seems like you were working with some technology transfer type issues in the eastern part of the state for smaller growers. Am I remembering that correctly? Or you were doing a series or something to adapt some technologies, maybe in the realm of for smaller growers specifically, it seems like. I'm trying to recall. It's been a while back since I looked at something.
This is the tobacco float bed conversion.
It could have been, Brett. I'm just pulling that out of the memory banks, which is probably not real accurate at this point. But it kind of got me interested because I've always been interested in the subject. First of all, kind of protected ag or controlled ag.
Yeah, we do have a project with ARC currently just promoting the CEA, the Controlling Environmental Agriculture Production in Eastern Kentucky specifically.
Okay.
It was, I think it's a 3-year project. And
Okay.
By doing that, we're just like doing the one-on-one technical support mostly for the growers, as
Gotcha.
well as developing some resources for them that could work for different production systems. But we do see a lot of flow beds that were from the old tobacco greenhouse, and now tobacco production kind of moving away. Growers are looking for opportunities to grow other crops in their flow bed systems.
So you were talking about scale and scope of operations, and scale and scope is one of my favorite things to think and talk about. But with systems like this, I would describe them as very intensive systems. The idea of a big farm and a small farm, or a bigger operation and a smaller operation, is very different, even from like other horticulture operations. An acre under plastic is very different from an acre of corn and soybeans, but also just different from an acre of tomatoes. Can you, what constitutes, coming from Canada and then also the United States now too, and in Kentucky, what constitutes like the ballpark, like brackets of a large operation versus a medium operation versus a small operation? Like what size is that even?
Yep. So for small size growers, I'm mostly talking about standalone greenhouse. It could be a high tunnel with certain like fans, heaters, and other things building up. So it's mostly like a 30 by 100 or 30 by 150 feet. Pretty standard operation. I think those are considered small size growers. And for mid size, it could be multiple greenhouses, whether they're gutter connected or they're individual greenhouses. And some growers may also have field production or other things going on. All the way even to like a few acres. But for all the large scale production, mainly talking about, most of the greenhouses are the Dutch Van Loo style greenhouse. They are taller than what you would see on traditional or small scale growers. But like anywhere from 15 to 60 acres is the sizes of the greenhouses that we commonly see in Kentucky with respect to large-scale production. And they use all the technologies. They're trying to control the environment as much as they can when it comes to heating, lighting, cooling, and other things like irrigation, fertigation.
I wanted to ask about like the crops and stuff that you encounter with it. So in your position, someone might be looking at it as saying like, oh, she must cover just like vegetable production, but I'm sure you also do floriculture and all sorts of things across the board. Has there been any like really, in your time in this position, like really unique crops or products that you have been seeing going in some of these greenhouses
Yeah. So, if we're thinking about traditional greenhouse crops, we're mostly talking about all the vine crops like tomato, cucumber, peppers. Lettuce is a popular one because it has short growing cycles, plus
Mm.
all the ornamentals that grow in pots. I think that's like basically all the traditional greenhouse crops. But in recent years, there are increasing interest in growing berries in greenhouses, including strawberries. We actually have a 30-acre, I believe, high-tech greenhouse that is currently growing strawberries in Somerset, Kentucky. And there are smaller growers that are also interested in growing, for example, raspberries or blackberries in soilless systems.
The soilless systems, yeah, that's crazy to think about because we just always think about them as these outdoor and they grow rampant usually for most people when you put them out there. So then to imagine them in that type of system, I mean, you'd have to be getting quite a premium on that, right?
Yeah.
When you compare it to relatively easy production outside, you'd have to be getting quite a premium to be able to grow them indoors to make that make
Exactly. Yeah, because
sense.
setting up those systems, there are a lot of different soilless systems, like the
Sure.
solid base you grow in a grow bag or a Dutch bucket with soilless substrate,
Mhm.
or you go with completely like liquid base, like the float bed
Mhm.
system or the nutrient film technique system. There are different options, but regardless, there is capital investments that goes into that to set everything up before you can start production.
That
And
makes
sometimes
sense
we
with
oh,
the
yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say it makes sense with the strawberry production and can be like a real benefit since a lot of strawberry producers are currently dealing with, I can't think of the strawberry disease right now, but the one that's
Neopest.
kind of neopest, yeah, that's like
Yeah.
getting really detrimental to some of the traditional production of strawberries in Kentucky. So that's a good
I bet you
alternative.
could control like spotted wing in a greenhouse, spotted wing
I
Drosophila
bet you
for
could, yeah.
brambles
Yep.
a lot easier too.
Sure.
Yeah, it's when you said soilless, and sometimes during meetings, I take for granted when we say soilless and move on, they think we're talking exclusively about water, but that's not necessarily the case because there's all this soilless media that's everything from peat moss to cocoa fiber or whatever. So, do you work a lot in that area? And by soilless media, not just water, but anything you ran into there that's looking promising for the future? It seems like that's on every grower's mind that I work with,
Mhm.
both outside and inside of greenhouses, is the media. It's getting so expensive,
Yep.
traditional peat-based mixes. So that is like one of the top questions people always want to know about across the board.
Yeah, I have some experience. I've worked with a few different types of media. Like you said, the traditional peat-based substrate is considered unsustainable substrate materials in the first place because it's harvested from the peatland, which is considered a really a good carbon storage in the world.
Mhm.
Although it's only like about 3% of the Earth's land surface, I think it stores one third of the total carbon
Wow.
in the world. So it's harvesting the peat from the peatland is not considered environmental friendly in the first place. Plus, all the supply chain issues and harvest
Mm.
issue with changing climate, making it more and more expensive. I know some growers have to order or even store their substrate a year ahead to make sure they have
Yeah.
enough supply for the next growing season. So there are a lot of interest in exploring other substrate materials that can be good in both physical and chemical properties. I think there are a few options. Cocoa coir is another one that growers are
Mhm.
interested in, especially for berry production, because that's somehow got recommended by a lot of the consultant that the cocoa coir is good for berry production, and also wood fiber and wood bark are
Mhm.
getting increasingly interest from the grower as well as from the research side. There are some scientists that are specifically looking into this type of substrate.
I think when Brett, correct me if you remember, but when we had some meetings when there were all the tariffs, and so of course all this media coming in was high tariffs. A lot I don't want to say a lot, but a couple of the greenhouse growers we were talking to in this sort of roundtable discussion were talking about the wood product, and like they had been subbing out. I forget, was it yellow poplar or a pine? Maybe I forget what kind it was, but they were subbing that out for peat.
I think they were interested in exploring it. Qinglu can talk about it more than I can. I do remember that meeting. You are correct. You did not hallucinate that.
I did not hallucinate
You did
that.
not make it up on the spot.
My dreams get real weird sometimes.
Yeah.
So.
They become reality.
And rice hulls, and just like the mix that they're
well,
creating.
I'm curious kind of what you're seeing as some of these emergent, because
the
basic thing is a lot of the media that we've had is either unsustainably produced or it's coming from a long distance away. Coconuts aren't necessarily grown in Kentucky. And so coconut coir fiber is not necessarily sustainable in the long term, but we do have trees, and there's rice that's grown not that far away. So maybe, are there other like media, like what's that space like of like alternative new media?
Yeah, I think wood bark, which is the larger particles of some components, and wood fiber, which are the finer materials of substrate components. They are probably the most popular right now as far as trying to replace peat. But from what I read, the wood fiber cannot exceed a certain percentage, normally like 20% to 50%. Otherwise, it might hold the nitrogen in the substrate, and the nutrient will not be available to plants. So you have to mix it at least with a small amount of peat or other components, plus other things like perlite, vermiculite, and other things.
Yeah, because there's this whole like thinking of, I always think of it from like a physical standpoint, right? When you think about the pieces of soilless media, your perlite, vermiculite, peat, like each of them have a physical component, but there's so much of a an EC and salt, and then to your point of like, is it holding the nutrients captive? And that I think people forget about. I forget about. Sometimes as I'm like, well, does it drain well? Can the roots get through? Is there airflow, which obviously is also needed? But then there's this whole other kind of chemical side that I think is forgotten about, and probably where people have the most trouble because it is forgotten about.
So is that, can I just ask, is that like similar to when you would terminate a cover crop and you lay it down, and for a while it's almost like composting in place, and so the material of that will bind up the nitrogen and not allow it to be accessible to the plants? Is that what's going on with the wood fibers, more like lignous and?
Exactly. Yeah, it has to be a certain carbon to nitrogen ratio to make sure the nutrients are available to plants.
So if you want to grow your plants for like 2 years in the pot, then maybe that's one thing. But in most of the time, these cycles, we want the plant to turn over pretty quick. And so if it's just binding up your nitrogen, you're just wasting. Yeah, I never thought about that. That's really interesting.
Brett
so
is
much
very
to the
in
media.
bonsai, so he's a media guy as well, but different medias.
Yeah. And at least if growers are aware of this, they can adjust their fertigation regimes by adding more nitrogen into their soluble solution. Might help with this, but they need to know what their substrate looks like and how to work with a specific substrate.
So
just go ahead, Brett.
Well, it's on that grower, adjustments and sort of different tolerances for technology and things like that. I'm curious, in your interacting with people here and through the extension position and along with your other experience, do you feel like there's particular, like, what do you view as the particular opportunities or particular challenges that you see a lot of the growers here on that stepping stone path? You mentioned capital availability, and that's a problem for a lot of operations. But is there any sort of like even approaches to using greenhouses or understandings of how greenhouses can be used or managed that you see you see opportunities for expansion or education?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for if there are new growers is that the greenhouse is now simply a field production under a roof. There are different things that are very different compared to field production. The growing environment is completely different. Understanding and managing, for example, temperature, relative humidity, lighting, and irrigations require a different mindset and skill sets, I think. And this is definitely a learning curve for a lot of them. I heard some really new growers who got their high tunnels were greenhouse set up the first year, and they're very excited. They planted a whole bunch of tomato plants in there, and they ended up frying out their tomato plants because they don't know how hot it can get in that system with the cover and everything. You have to know when to open up the side curtains, the ventilations, put on shade curtains, like all those things to manage their growing environments properly to make sure they have a successful growing season. And then for the more experienced grower, I think the biggest challenge is balancing the increasing production input versus their productivity. Things are getting more and more expensive. The growing substrate, the fertilizers, and the energy costs, etc. And how to basically balance the input with the yield they're getting is the biggest challenge. But I think there are a lot of opportunities. There are growing demands for locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables. People are looking for, especially out of season fruit and vegetables in Kentucky. And I think the small scale growers, mid-scale growers, could definitely fit a lot of the gap with the local demand.
You mentioned lighting. I've been curious about that too. I've worked with growers and they try to grow tomatoes, let's say, for instance, in the middle of, they said, well, we've got our high tunnel and it's warm in there, but they just don't produce a marketable crop. What's going on in the world of lighting? Because I know I can think 20 years ago, we were all filament-based bulbs or high-intensity discharge bulbs and all of this, but now it seems like, there's much more energy efficient options with, LEDs, so on and so forth. But what's going on there? I mean, what are you seeing?
Yeah, there are actually a lot of advancements in terms of supplemental lightings for greenhouse production. Like you mentioned, I think the high pressure sodium lights was the to-go lights for supplemental lights for greenhouse production probably 10 to 20 years ago. And recently, with the advancement of horticulture LED lights, growers are slowly adopting the lighting technologies for that production. Because of the horticulture LED lights, growers are able to dim their lights to achieve the goals. For example, if it's really sunny outside one day, they can dim the lights down a little bit to like 10 to 20%. And if it's very dark outside, then they can just put it at 100% output, as well as the spectrum. Some light fixtures, the light spectrum is adjustable because plants use red and blue light most efficiently as compared to other wavelengths, other colors of lights. So some LED lights, that's the reason some LED lights looks purple. It's just a pure combinations of red and blue lights. Versus some LED lights, there are white, which is the green wavelengths mixed in that. So it looks a little bit whiter as compared to the pure red and blue LED lights. So there are a lot of research going on looking at different crops responded to light intensity and light spectrum, trying to identify the optimal intensity and spectral combination to grow specific crops, both in a greenhouse as well as indoor facilities where there's no ambient light available.
And it's interesting that it actually impacts the plant. It seems like has a potential on a deeper level, and that's pretty interesting. Some of the work you're involved with, that was kind of neat.
Like the plant growth, the plant architectures are affected by the changing light environments. The obviously the fresh weight, the yield is going to be affected, and more importantly, some of the nutritional contents of the plants are also affected by different wavelengths of lights. I actually did my whole PhD on lighting. Grow microgreens under different lights,
That's
different
awesome.
spectral
That's so
combinations
cool.
of lights, and I found that using the shorter wavelengths, like the blue wavelengths, can actually promote some of the secondary metabolites of plants. For example, anthocyanins, totophenolic compounds. Those are health promoting compounds that are really good for our human health, and adjusting the light spectrum can actually affect or promote those contents, which is pretty cool.
Very
Whoa,
cool.
that's
Yeah, it's
really
super cool. I
Just
know.
blew all of our minds.
Yeah, it's good
This
stuff.
is like a perfect audience for this to just be like, whoa, like
We're gonna go out there and bombard our
we're
plants
in.
with blue spectrum light. Now we're gonna have
Yeah.
Franken plants growing because we've learned something today. We're
We're
gonna
gonna
be
be
like,
it's
we're
for
gonna
the
try this.
anthocyanins, people.
Yes.
Are those lights good for like Instagram pictures, for like generating a following for Instagram, or no?
Yeah.
Probably not. If you work in an indoor facility with just LED lights, red and blue combinations, when you get out of that facility, everything looks like green. Like everything is green because
Oh.
it's missing there. It's not a very friendly environment to work in.
Yeah.
Unless you're a plant.
Yeah, I remember the one of the greenhouses on campus had the red and blue LEDs, and when they were real low, like, and you would walk by, when they were low, you didn't notice it too much, right? Because they were close to the plant. But when they raised them higher, if you just even on the outside, it was like assaulting. So I can imagine if you were in a whole greenhouse full of those, how like weird that would mess with you. Oh yeah, that's wild. Well, and I'm going to do a shameless little plug here. We are going to continue to talk about all these cool things, but for you listeners, if you are interested in, media, maybe mixing your own media, or just sort of the pros and cons to it, how do you tell if this media is working for you, as well as some of these tools that Dr. Ying was talking about. How do I measure my humidity? How do I know that I've got a good growing space if you're growing your own seedlings or transplants or something like that? We will have Dr. Ying as well as her team at our field day, and that's in Lexington, Kentucky. It's Appropriate Tools and Technologies Field Day. So if you're interested in that, anything from seeding to transplanting, all that in between, and want to hear from the experts who can actually help you, that field day is on August 25th. And when this episode is released, there will still be time for you to sign up. And another little plug, if you are a Kentucky farmer, high chances that you can have your travel as well as your registration refunded through the Kentucky Horticulture Council. So if you need more information on that, that is on our CCD website. We'll make sure that is in the show notes. But a little shameless plug before we continue to talk about
and
all
particularly relevant because we have one of the stars of the field day here, Qinglu.
Yes, we will have her for a big section in the morning, so everybody will get to experience her magic and all her cool science.
What are you going to be talking about? What are you going to be talking about there?
I'll be talking about mixing your own growing substrates.
Yeah, I know that'll be popular with some of our growers.
What kind of samples, like what kind of materials will be on hand? What can we expect? I'm looking. I don't know about this.
Yeah, I'm trying to collect as many samples as possible now, like just having everyone to feel it and see how different they are in terms of like water holding capacity and the nutrient availability in the substrates materials.
Wow, that sounds.
As a nerd,
I'm very looking forward to that. I love media. Media.
Yeah, I did some little media trials like on my own this spring with some new media stuff, and it was, number one, super fun to see what did and didn't work. But I was shocked at the difference, and between them, treated all the same. The trays were next to each other, same. Everything was the same, but the medias, and how different they were because of that nutrient capability and just the way things moved. And I was like, wow, I'm really glad I wasn't counting on some of these seedlings because they are not good. Or they died. They looked really good and then they died.
I mean, small changes, it makes crazy differences. I mean, that's what kind of blows my mind is we have a local nursery that they grow native trees, and they made one small change to their media. They use less peat. Well, that completely changed their pH profile. And we finally figured out that's what it was. It was not as acidic, so we had to do acid and work with them on acid injections. Just because the percentage of peat changed in the mix, and they went to a bark-based mix, completely changed the pH. I mean, the root zone seemed to be acceptable for other than just that pH.
Like the physical,
really,
the roots moved.
Yeah, the roots moved through fine. The water holding capacity was good, not too much, not too little. It was in the Goldilocks zone. But man, just the pH. I looked between the sound. So what did you guys do? And they're like, oh yeah, we're using less pH. I mean, it was just something they went to a different mix, and it just made, like you said, Alexis, all the difference in the
Yeah.
world. And they just switched it up a little. And I was like, oh, so
Yeah.
lots of nutrient deficiencies and other issues. So yeah.
But
Does
generally
it take-
speaking, a slightly lower pH helps, generally speaking, with nutrient availability in plants. If for people who aren't
for what they were
plant
growing,
nerds
yes.
and are listening along,
Yes.
it's like that's a big deal, because it basically makes, it's like if you, the amount of food that you eat, if you were only able to absorb a fraction of the calories or the fraction of the vitamins and minerals from it, it's like that kind of
Where's the fun in that, Brad?
effect.
I want the full effect of that Twinkie. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. I'm also excited because, to not only do we have Qinglu talking and you get to experience all these media, but we have part of her team, Arundhati, is going to be talking about and kind of showing some differences in just ways to, measure, inexpensively measure, your humidity and your light and things like that. So if you've had trouble, especially if you're growing some early crops, I think as someone who starts a lot of seeds in the dead of winter, it can be hard, right? And you're like, do I need to be fertilizing more? Or is it just that they don't have enough light? Or, are they look really weak? Is it calcium? What is it? Or is it too humid? Or not enough? And just the difference that some of these relatively inexpensive sensors can do to really like bump up your success. And when we're talking, even if, I'm not growing a ton of stuff in comparison to, I've got a small greenhouse, but seeds are expensive, and to your point of like media is expensive, and your time is worth something. So if you're fighting kind of this endless battle, like how can you make that better? So I'm really excited. I was just talking with her yesterday about it, and we were making some plans, and so I'm really excited because I think it's going to be so beneficial for people who maybe are struggling a little bit, especially with some of those long-term hard to grow seedlings. I think it's going to be really, really great.
And with the ARC, the project I was talking about, we were able to buy a whole bunch of those sensors, so we can actually give those sensors out to commercial growers if they are interested in learning their growing environments and make improvements.
And that is, and those sensors are primarily measuring humidity and
measuring light, relative humidity, and temperature. So it's a three.
Wow.
That's nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think the good thing with that sensor is you can download the data from your phone. Like you can check real time measurements on your phone, and it also creates a spreadsheet that you can download. So if, for example, what we're thinking is those new growers who are not familiar with their growing environments, they can even put their sensors in their facilities to understand the daily or the seasonal variation to start with, seeing how hot it can get before making a really large planting.
Yeah.
Whoa, Brett, you just got excited with spreadsheets. Really neat.
Well, yeah, I mean, it reminds me, we were talking before about like tensiometers and soil water probes and things, especially with black plastic, and just the way that having that data point, we're not trying to overwhelm people with data or turn farmers into researchers, but man, it's so nice to, especially if you're like, I think it's a little hot in there, and you look and it's like, yeah, it's getting hot in there. It's a nice, like, either corroboration or a way to go and check. And that's really, really cool. I'm curious, like, as you look now I cannot believe it's been 2 years. That's pretty crazy that you've been working here in Kentucky. What do you hope for Kentucky controlled environment agriculture, in the next 2 years, next 5 years and beyond? What are your hopes or visions for that?
Well, I personally am hoping to help more growers. I think a lot of growers don't know that our extension team even exists. So I'm hoping to expand our outreach to help more growers with their needs. And for them, I'm just simply hoping that they can grow more using less.
Especially with the rising costs of just natural gas or whatever, electric or whatever they're using.
Well, it's been, I've been now, once upon a time I was working out at the South Farm in the high tunnels out there, and one day when I was picking strawberries and weighing them for yield, we were doing a variety trial or something, just random person rolled up and was like, "Hey, I just got money from," and this was all new terms to me at the time. I got this money from the NRCS to put up a high tunnel, and I wanted to like see what that was all about. And so this was right when they started, and I was like, "Oh, it's cool! Like, it's cool that you're figuring this out. Would have been cool to know what this was about before you received the money, but we'll try to get this cart back behind that horse as much as we can." But that was the first, and then from then on, it was like at least a couple times a month, if not once a week, there'd be people coming out and seeing stuff, and we've just not had a strong capacity to support that as robustly as I've seen you supporting it and Arundhati supporting it and that whole team. And so it's just been really cool to see the impact you've had. I know you're saying maybe people don't know about you yet, but there's a lot of people who do know and who have benefited from it. And I'm looking forward to just seeing that continued support and expansion of across the spectrum of growers, because it's become a really important and big piece of the horticulture and agricultural industry in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Excited.
Literally a growing portion of ag in Kentucky. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm impressed at the vast width. Like, a lot of people might think you only work with some of those really big greenhouses, and you're saying, no, we work with the person who just got their very first greenhouse and needs to figure that, and that in itself is just, it's a lot to to fulfill those very different needs and probably different crops. And you're going to throw in floriculture versus veg, and of course we have specialists who are very into that, but you're the one who's talking about the whole system, and so the different needs of those is just, it's wild. And I'm so glad we have people like you who are so brilliant.
So remind me, is there like a particular website or anything like that for resources, or is a lot of stuff on the CCD site that you all have? I mean, if people want to find you or find information or whatever, what would be the best way to do that?
All of our resources are with CCD, I believe. And we have a specific website for greenhouse horticulture, I believe. And we put out a lot of resources for different production system, as well as the production guides of different crops that can be grown in a greenhouse. So if people are looking for resources, I think CCD will be the best place to find them, or just contact
Qinglu's team just released two really exciting pubs. One's a high wire tomato system, which was has really great pictures in it, and really laid it out in a way I've not seen before, and I thought it looked great. And then one I'm really excited about, we'll have some more info up for a news article on CCD's website, but is on sort of protecting your structures in this various climate we've had. And you go into heat, but also, we just had a thunderstorm last night and thunderstorm watch, and 60-mile-per-hour winds came through. And so you kind of talk about everything from snow load to wind to high heat. And I was like, you don't know the squeal I squealed when I saw that you guys are putting that out, because it's so needed. And I know I get questions from friends who have tunnels and greenhouses all the time. Do I open it? Do I close it? You're so worried in the moment. And so having that resource, I think, is going to be so great. You and Dr. Rudolph put that out, and I'm so excited about it. I just needed to tell you in person how excited I am about it. It's going to be really great.
We think it's a very much needed resources, and we couldn't put it out during last snowstorm, but we think like nowadays anytime is a good time to put that out.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Well, Dr. Ying, we are so glad that you were here with us today. And like I said, if you want to come see her brilliance in action, as well as her whole team, we'd love to have you out at the field day. And if you need more info about that, we'll have that in the show notes. You can also follow us on Instagram at hortculturepodcast. Shoot us an email if you're like, hey, Alexis, I cannot find that, and I will send you the direct registration link, as well as, if you're a Kentucky farmer, the link to get reimbursed through the Kentucky Horticulture Council. Very grateful for them for, being able to support Kentucky farmers further in their education. So it's going to be really great. I'm shamelessly plugging it because it's a huge event that I help put on, and I'm very proud of it. So we hope you guys will join us. We appreciate you being with us here today. See, I'm so excited. My words are all jumbled. Anyways, thank you all. Have a great one.